When I began this assignment, I was not clear on the difference between gender and sex. I actually thought of them as basically the same thing. I now understand that sex is the physiological and biological characteristics of being either male or female, and gender is more physiological and related to roles and behaviors that are considered male or female by society or the individual person's perception. My experience with the BIM sex role inventory was interesting. I actually experienced questions that related to sex and and and, and gender. Instead, the questions were about normal activities that anyone may or may not be involved in. I don't think this test was an adequate measure of, the, of gender. I really don't see the value of the scale of this test in any way. I don't think that that gender should be measured as a dictanormous variable. Instead, I believe that that gen, that gender should be based on more cultural and social norms related to it. I don't think it is really necessary to measure the 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 gender in most circumstances. However, the videos on athletes and 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 gender were very interesting. The first video about Caster Semenya is a person I already knew about because I'm living in South Africa and she is a South African athlete. This YouTube video about Caster was a new cast from August of 2009. Because of Caster, so much more is known and understood about the about about the gender testing of female athletes and also about testing to determine complete androgen insensitivity syndrome or CAIS. Over the years, there has been lots of debate because Caster was winning races as a female with unprecedented times. At one point, they required her to medically deduce her um, um, natural um, um, testosterone levels, and she wasn't winning anymore. However, those rulings were overturned in July 2015. She won again, and there were more protests by other female athletes and different rulings. The goal of the IAAF is to maintain fair competition so that hard-working athletes are not discouraged by unfair hormone advantages. That is why male and female athletes compete separately. Because the IAAF wants to respect people with different sexual development, or DSDs, they could possibly create a new category of athletes with DSD in the future. The second video is about Gabriela Ludwig, who is playing women's college basketball as a transgender athlete. Many years before she had her transgender surgery, she played on a men's team as Robert Ludwig. Because it had been so many years, she is able to enjoy playing, but I don't think it is as controversial because she is much older and she is not a competitive threat to the other teams. The third video is about women's soccer teams in South Korea protesting a female soccer player, Park Eun-seon, who was excelling. The coaches from the other teams in the league were demanding that she take a gender test. Park played for the South Korea representing her country in the World Cup soccer games, and no one complained about her skills. However, coaches from 6 opposing teams in the league soccer filed a complaint with the Korean Football Association and threatened to boycott the league competition the following year if Park did not take a gender test. She said that she was humiliated by their demand and accusation. Honor is very important in Korean culture, and the coach's threats because of their competitive zeal and desire to win, insulted her. I think the biggest factor that is evident in these video examples is that when a female athlete is exceeding and winning in competition, it is a threat to the opposing athletes and team coaches. When the competition reaches high levels of recognition on the world stage, and athletes and their coaches sometimes go to extreme measures of accusation and reasons to try to disqualify or discredit the winning female athletes. In these cases, it can become very debatable circumstances and controversial situations. When I watched the bio-interactive slideshow of HHMI about the gender testing of female athletes, I learned a lot about the process that has developed and how they determine if the athletes can compete as a female or as a male. When I first interacted with the slideshow and was reading the information, my initial decision about how the athlete could be allowed to compete as a male or a female was basically based on their autonomy and physiologically. I thought that the athlete was female. That made sense to me about how to determine a person's sex from what I have understood in the past. I've never before heard of the karyotype testing. This genetic information was personally interesting to me because my brother and I also have an X chromosome based genetic disability. My younger brother and I have a genetic disorder called Fragile X. As the HHMI bio-interactive presentation explained, as a female, I have two X chromosomes, and the normal X chromosome I received from my father compensates for the Fragile X that I received from my mother. Because of that, I have experienced some delays and challenges, but I'm able to read, write, and do academic work. However, my brother received the Y chromosome from my father and the Fragile X from my mother, so he is not able to read or write or understand basic analytical concepts like numeracy, dates, or time. I do not know about the SYR gene and the role it plays in male sexual development. I think it is very interesting that they can test for this gene with the Polymerase chain reaction and use several different determining factors to have more evidence to make a consistent decision regarding the sex and competitive edge that a female athlete can have above the others. From the information I saw in an article published by The Guardian in April 2018, the International Association of Athletes Federation have introduced a new guideline. It will require female athletes with differences of sexual development to limit their testosterone levels to a much lower level that will put them on the same level as the other non-DSD female athletes' average testosterone levels. People who advocate for Caster Semenya and others are already protesting these restrictions. I believe that this debate will continue for many years and will be a point of controversy in future competitions.